Welcome to Awaken the Mind, the NLP and Hypnosis Guide,
Relax.
hosted by David Uhas.
You're listening to Awaken the Mind, the NLP and Hypnosis Guide, a podcast that inspires the curious to the professional to discover meaningful content and pursue their passions. My name is David Uhas, and I'm a master NLP practitioner and hypnotist, best known for losing over 100 pounds and running 6 marathons in 2 years. And I'm sitting down with hypnotists, NLP practitioners, and coaches to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how to make an impact in the lives of others.
Beware of self, let the worries melt. All you see is you and you don't see no one else. Auditory digital, talking to yourself. It might seem bizarre, a feeling you never felt. This is your time to shine. Awaken the mind, the NLP and Hypnosis Guide. Yeah, come on.
Our guest today is Richard Dhamma, and he is among the most highly trained and experienced hypnotherapy professionals in the Midwest with over 45 years of hypnosis experience. He holds advanced certification as a clinically certified hypnotherapist and is a Master Clinical Hypnotherapy Trainer certification official. In addition to holding advanced degrees in counseling and mental health treatment, he is a regular lecturer at major colleges and universities in the region, as well as a featured presenter at national and international conferences and forums on hypnotherapy, mental health treatment, and juvenile justice reform. He currently serves as executive director of a large internationally known juvenile detention and treatment center in Southwest Michigan. Richard is a retired U.S. Air Force officer who served as Inter-Continental Ballistic Missile, ICBM, flight commander, Airborne Mission Commander, and led several large organizations on 3 continents. He is the author of numerous articles appearing in academic and professional journals and is currently associate editor of Reframe, the magazine for professional hypnotherapists. And please give our guest today, Richard Dhamma, a warm welcome. Hi, Richard.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And I know you're busy, so thank you for taking some time out to share your experience with us.
Again, my pleasure.
Absolutely. So before we get into the backstory of how we met on Facebook, just kind of teasing our listeners, it was all about introvert, extrovert, but that's coming up. I'd like to share with our listeners so that they can get to know you. If you could talk a little bit about your past. You were one of 4 children to an Italian immigrant parents, and
Yes,
you were born in Brooklyn, New York. Talk about your childhood.
Well, we moved around quite a bit, but I call Lansing, Michigan home. My parents were extremely big on education. When my father worked his way through college, was the first member of his family that we know of to have attended college. And the education was extremely important. So they began investing in my siblings and me in our early education from elementary on. Again, one of 4 children, very traditional, old world upbringing. So it was kind of a blend of the new world and the old world. But my parents were very, very progressive. They were thoroughly American in and out, but they were very progressive thinkers also, while being politically conservative.
You had a very interesting childhood, private elementary school. I share that, raised Catholic, and I will say beaten by nuns. And
Yes.
You said the nuns beat a world-class education into me and beat Christianity out of me, for both of which I will be forever in their debt.
Yes, quite so. Yeah, we agreed to part ways, and never the twain shall meet again.
Fair enough.
However, one of my best friends did become a priest.
Oh, nice. Well, tell me a little bit more about as you started growing up through high school and college, your experience.
Graduated from the elementary school, and then went to public high school. But it was an excellent, excellent high school, very academically oriented. The majority of kids were on, at least that I knew, were on college prep track. And they had some of the best programs in the state. And I've actually never met anybody who had a similar program in their school. But we had a literature teacher who taught world literature. And if you agreed to take the course, if they agreed to take you, if they asked you to take the course, you signed up for all 3 years, as it was just an expectation that you would continue all the way through. And so I was offered the opportunity and took it, and it was the best move I ever made. The instructor, Mr. Hugo Spagnola, was one of the most brilliant minds I have ever met, and he knew it. But and we always asked, why are you teaching high school? And he said, because you guys need me more. And so that was the way he approached it, and we loved him, and his love for us was obvious. So, but I was playing some games too. I was taking courses at the local community college while I was still in high school. I took advantage of a loophole, and so we were going back and forth. So I was spending my senior year, I was actually spending more time at the community college getting college credits than I was devoting time to my high school to get out. So by the time exam time came around, my grade point in high school had dropped to where I had to take senior exams. So I walked into this class, and he walked up, and I was the only one there that had to take the exams. He handed me a stack of blue books, and he handed me the exam question, and he said, "Don't look at it until I tell you to." And he said, "Go." And he hit a stopwatch. And I turned the question over, and it said, "Over the last 3 years, we have read over 100 works of world literature, ranging from Sophocles to Ray Bradbury and Kurt Vonnegut Jr. What is the common unifying theme in all these works? Be specific, use quotes." And I went, "Oh, I am so screwed." And I said, "No, I know how to do this. I know how to do this." Okay. And so I just said, okay. So I did what the man taught us to do. I said, I just got a piece of paper or one of the blue books, and I looked at it, and I said, "All right, I've got 20 minutes. And just vomited my mind on the paper. Any thought that came in, I wrote it down. So at the end of 20 minutes, I stopped. I had pretty much half a blue book filled, and I went through and started going through and making associations. And then about halfway through that, I went, "Oh yeah." And so I organized it and then just started writing, and the bell rang just as I was putting the last period on the last sentence, and handed it in and walked out thinking to myself, I am so screwed. And I'm sorry if that offends you.
Not at all, not at all.
But so I came, that was on a Friday. I came back on Monday, and he walked over and he put the blue books down on my desk face down. And he said, "Don't look at them until I tell you." And then he said, "Go." And I looked at it and I had an A+. I had a 4.5. And he said, "Congratulations, you get it." And I said, "Obviously I don't." So after class, I went up and said, what do I get?" And he said, "You have the background and the ability to think on your feet or your butt." He said, "You can walk into any exam, essay exam, in language that you speak with a subject that you are even marginally acquainted with, and you'll get a C. Congratulations, you just graduated college."
Wow.
And that was, ever since then, yeah. Yeah, it was incredible. I realized the value of the education that I had received, and it hasn't failed me since.
Nice.
That was high school. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say that makes me think about how so often when we're challenged with something that we feel or believe we can't do, that some people will stop there, and you went ahead and pushed through it.
Oh, well, I see that's something you need to know about me is I'm a contrarian. The fastest way to get me to do something is tell me that I can't do it. And I will kill myself trying to prove you wrong.
Another fascinating thing that you shared, that you like to read books at least 2 a week, and you're dyslexic. That's
Yes.
fascinating.
Profoundly dyslexic. Didn't, which is what caused a lot of the friction I realize now between the good sisters and myself and my family. So my father was an engineer, so math was just second nature to him. That was, mother's milk. And when the numbers don't sit still, you don't see the same thing twice. When you look at the equation, it's pretty hard to solve a problem. Well, nobody knew what dyslexia was, or at least it wasn't common back then. But so yeah, there were a lot of tears, and many of them thought I was brain damaged. And then just at puberty, my brain rewired itself. I'm still dyslexic, but I've learned to compensate for it. So now I read faster than most non-dyslexic people that I know.
Wow. You learned hypnosis at the age of 15 from a Dave Ellman Teaches Medical Hypnosis record set.
Yes. I was helping my grandmother, adopted grandmother. She was a woman that we just fell in love with and fell in love with us. So we called her grandmother and grandma, and her husband Gramps. So I was at their home. They lived out in the country, and I was helping her clean out a back bedroom that they were been using for storage. And so I'd reached under her bed and pulled out a box, and it was dusty and old. And so I said, "What's in here, Grandma?" And she goes, "I don't know, open it." So I opened it up, and it was full of Dave Ellman Teaches Medical Hypnosis. And I said, "Whoa, where'd you get these?" And she said, "Oh, probably at an estate sale decades ago." Does you want them? "Oh, absolutely." And I'll show you how old they are. These were 78s.
I know what those are. I know what those are.
Yeah, for your younger, yeah, they used to cut. They were very brittle and plastic acetate discs. But I took to that like a duck to water. I listened to those and I became the bane of my sister's existence, both of them, and all my friends. I was chasing all my friends and their friends and family and everyone, and it became fun. And I realized I was good at it. And so it became one of those things that, you pull out of your pocket at a party, or somebody will come to you and would say, I dare you, or, "Hey, help me do this?" I don't know, let's find out. So I started doing that, and it was loved hypnosis, and started reading as much as I could about it. And then I got off to college, and was working as an undergraduate research assistant in one of the psych labs. And they needed somebody to do hypnosis as a variable in one of the studies that they wanted to do. And the person that they had designed to do it had a family emergency and had to leave school. So they were going to have to cancel the study. And the study coordinator said, "There is a training in Detroit this weekend. If we can send somebody, they can come back Monday, a certified hypnotist." And the director goes, "Who wants to go?" Well, one of the things my father did is never volunteered, never turned down education, but never volunteered. And so he goes, "Dama, you're the new guy, you go." Okay. So, but again, I was a profound introvert. I had social anxiety disorder. I would go to a class and read the syllabus on the first day, and if there was a presentation, I would drop that course like it was hot, because just the thought of having to give a presentation would send me into a panic attack. So I show up at the Renaissance Center in Detroit, and it is a huge place. And where we were at was at least 400 people. Oh. And so introverts love crowds. You become anonymous. So I went in, signed in, went into the venue, looked around to the back corner where I knew the introverts would be, went back there, and they're my tribe. We got along great. And so it was one of those situations where the instructor would talk about a technique, would ask for a volunteer, would demonstrate the technique, and then we'd break off into groups, practice on each other, come back, debrief, and move on. So things were going well until Saturday. It was like all night Friday, all day Saturday, and pretty much all day Sunday. So Saturday after lunch, he starts talking about social anxiety disorder and is walking towards the back of the room. I'm going, no, there's 399 other people in this room. Can't be coming for me. Wrong. So he came up and put his hand on my shoulder and said, like this young man who appears to be about 2 breaths away from a heart attack, aren't you, son? Yes, sir. And then he leaned over and he just adopted this gentle voice and said, we had name tags, and he goes, Rich, just close your eyes. Okay, just close your eyes. It's okay. And just listen to the sound of my voice. I'm going to take you by the elbow and I'm going to lead you to the front of the room. I'm going to put you in the chair that you've seen at least a dozen other people sitting in. Nobody's died, and neither will you. So all you need to do is keep your eyes closed and just listen to my voice. Any other sounds are just totally extraneous. So I was already under by this point. So he brought me up to the front of the room, sat me in the chair, and then started the technique in earnest. And I have to tell you, to this day, I cannot tell you what happened in that 20 minutes from personal memory. I do not know, but I opened my eyes and I knew I was profoundly different, because I was looking at this room and all these people are almost completely surrounding us, and they're smiling and clapping and laughing. And I'm like, this is really bizarre. And the instructor leaned in and goes, you're freaking out because you're not freaking out, aren't you? Yeah, that's it. And this is God's own truth. Within a month, I was doing stand-up comedy. I went from being, almost a social recluse to the gregarious extrovert you see now. I travel around the world giving presentations. I come to life in front of an audience. I often say during my presentations, the 2 times I have felt most alive in my life is in combat and in front of an audience. Not to equate the 2, but it depends on the audience too. But
Right.
So that's how I got into hypnosis, and that's my story as to how I went from an introvert to an extrovert.
Well, you are inspiring, and you give me hope because, well, we'll talk about that here. We're almost there. So you're a counselor, you're a therapist, and you practice Reiki. Tell me about that.
Reiki?
Sure.
I do not use Reiki very often.
Okay.
It was an opportunity that I had to learn something again. Never turned down education. And so I had the opportunity to study under a master. I took the opportunity and found that I have a talent for it. But again, it doesn't fit into where my life is at now and what I'm doing. I do it and with clients where it's really, really indicated, or I do it by request with certain clients and with family and friends and things like that. Yeah. Counseling, that's my 3rd career. And it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, but this is it. I've never been happier. And I get to, between my 2 jobs as the director of the juvenile center and as a private therapist, so I get to be an administrator and clinician during the day, and in the evening, working with kids. And in the evening, I get to come to my private office and work with hypnosis and adults. So I get to be clinical and an administrator, 2 things that I dearly love.
Nice. How is it, because I am not a counselor, how is it that, how does your counseling and the hypnosis come together when you work with people?
Oh, that's an excellent question. And one that I am finding a distinction I have to make with many of my clients. They refer to me as a hypnotist, and I stop them in their tracks. And no, I am a licensed mental health professional. I am a cognitive behavioral therapist. I happen to use what I call cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy as one of my interventions with clients. It's actually my primary intervention. But again, hypnosis is just simply not indicated for everybody. In some clients, it's contraindicated. And in those clients, we do talk therapy. And I do couples therapy and all of that. But yeah, hypnosis just is one of the tools in my toolbox. It's just the one that I go to more often, because I can get the same results in 3 to 5 sessions that would take me about 4 to 6 months in talk therapy. So it's much more direct, and I like to see results. And again, I just think it's an ethical responsibility. If I have somebody coming to me in distress and they're hurting, and I have the ability to help them stop the hurt, and I don't do that as quickly and as efficiently as possible, that to me is a violation of ethics. Yeah. I'm prolonging their suffering, hopefully not for personal benefit, but I just don't see the reason why it has to drag on that long.
So you specialize in PTSD, trauma, anxiety, phobias, and OCD, and you also conduct smoking cessation programs.
Sure.
Tomorrow's the 4th of July, and we're celebrating our independence. Can you talk a little bit about PTSD? Anything that may benefit our listeners who either have a loved one that's experiencing it or maybe somebody who is personally experiencing it?
I will look you in the eye and tell you, if you're out there, you don't have to live like this. There is help available, especially for veterans and first responders. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a normal human reaction to abnormal circumstances. There is help available. Get the help, for God's sake. Don't live like that. That's my pitch. That's my plea. And take it from somebody who's been there. You don't have to live like that. It works, folks. Take advantage of the opportunities, especially veterans. The VA will bend over backwards for you now. And if you have problems, contact me. I will make a referral, or if you're close enough, I'll work with you.
Awesome, and we'll definitely have your contact information on the website.
And I know I'll probably regret saying this, but I have never charged a veteran a penny for PTSD or service-related issues.
Well, and also thank you for serving our country.
My pleasure. I thank the taxpayers the first of every month.
So you're also interesting dyslexic, and you write a lot of articles and abstracts for professional and academic journals. Can you talk about, and magazines as well? Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that?
Sure. I have a passion for writing. My father spoke several languages. My parents spoke Italian in the house when they didn't want us to understand what they were saying. So my siblings and I, of course, are fluent in Italian, and which is very close to Spanish. And I've been stationed in both places. And so I speak several languages. But English is just my favorite language. It's just so eloquent and just so elegant and beautiful. The language of Shakespeare and Chaucer. So I love using the language. I think I have a talent for it. And I also like sharing ideas. And so as a therapist, it gives me an opportunity to write blogs and articles to put ideas out there. I'm a scientist. I'm a scientific practitioner. As the editor of a professional journal, I get to see first, before they're published, a lot of the research that's going on in the field. So, and I use that, and I comment on this is what the research is indicating, or wouldn't it be great if somebody could do research in this area? The data we have indicate that a trend towards this, but we still need more data. We need more studies to verify this. And so that's a forum for that. I really enjoy, writing is a passion. It's like, again, it's air to me. I can't not do it.
Nice. Is there something that you like to write about, a special niche or something within hypnosis or?
Again, blog. My personal blog is just whatever happens to be striking me. Like whatever bug crawled up my butt that morning. My articles recently have been mostly to do with hypnosis, and again, what I call cognitive behavioral hypnosis, which is my own kind of school of thought, which combines cognitive behavioral therapy and hypnotherapy in a evidence-based, data-driven protocol. And I'm in the process of writing the definitive text on that since I invented it. So,
Nice.
I do a lot of writing. I've written several, most recently a journal article for Reframe on the use of hypnosis for PTSD. One on the introduction to cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy. Those are the most recent. That's a 2-part article. So that's really a lot of what I do. I write for other publications and a couple of professional associations that I'm a member of, plus 2 books I'm working on.
So how we connected, or I connected with you because I saw on Facebook you had written something about introverts and extroverts, and that got my attention. So let's talk about introverts and extroverts.
Okay.
Extroverts. Can you give the definition of what is an introvert and what is an extrovert? And also, what are the origins of those terms?
The origins of the terms, I would actually have no idea. I would say from the Latin, from the words themselves in the base. I honestly don't know where those came from. To me, an introvert is someone who prefers solitude. I will give them the benefit of the doubt in that. But I find that it usually goes back to social anxiety disorder. People just simply feel uncomfortable in social situations, or they feel drained by having to engage in social situations. Whereas an extrovert, the best definition I can give is myself. I get my energy from working with people, from interacting with people. I need a lot of contemplation time, again, for working and writing and all of that. And that helps me recharge my personal batteries. But the main battery that keeps me going, I charge up by being around others and being able to engage with others in a useful, purpose-driven endeavor, regardless of what that is. Even just having fun, that's a purpose-driven endeavor, and I enjoy that.
You said something interesting, and it's the first time I've ever heard an introvert described that way. You said social anxiety, or someone that their batteries are drained, as opposed to an extrovert that their batteries are charged.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'll go back to myself as a kid, or even in an early adolescent. A lot of people, when they hear me say I had acute social anxiety disorder, who knew me back then, would laugh. You were the least shy person I ever met. Well, that was an act. It was exhausting. I always figured that the best defense is a good offense. So I faked being an extrovert, and I came across as being overbearing. I'm sure overbearing and cocky, self-confident to the point of cockiness, arrogance. But that was all a sham. I was terrified constantly, and that is just so incredibly exhausting. And you just drain yourself. So by the time that I would get back alone, it was, and now I can relax. And so you need solitude to recharge.
I remember being at a church function one time, and I went to the bathroom just like to hide, to get a breath of air, because it was just so tiring to be around everybody. And it's funny because, just like you said, people, they look at me and they're like, "You're an extrovert. What are you talking about?" I'm like, "No, seriously, it's tiring."
It is. Yes, it can be exhausting, even for extroverts. We get drained too. There are people who truly are energy vampires. They feed off the energy of others.
Yes.
As someone who does Reiki and can feel and manipulate energy, you know when you're in the presence of those. It might be hard to pinpoint who it is if there are several people in the room, but there really are such beings.
So that gives I make up our listeners, if they're an introvert, maybe some hope, because I used to kind of feel like there's something wrong with me. I'm broken.
No, not at all. You are simply who you are. Enjoy that. Celebrate who you are. You are the sum total of your life experiences. You are the most unique example of you that's ever lived. Celebrate that. Celebrate your uniqueness. I say, let you fly your weird flag and just, so all the other weirdos know who you are. Let's make a pride together.
Nice.
No, you're not broken. People, you are how you are. If you don't like the way you are, if that's causing problems, then by all means, go seek help. And there are people who can help you, counselors, clergy, whatever your personal orientation is or philosophical bent. But other than that, you're not broken. You simply are who you are. You are the sum total of all your life experiences. Yeah. You can't possibly be any other way than the way you are right now.
Somebody that is an introvert, there are skills that they can learn to overcome some of those challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, again, first thing is just simply accept yourself for who you are, the valuable, incredibly unique individual that you are. In the entire history of the world, there's never been another one of you, and there never will be. You are totally unique, like every other snowflake on the glacier.
Tell me about your 6 near-death experiences. Speaking of like public speaking and feeling like it's dying.
Well, I hope you're not feeling that way now.
No. I'm moving towards being an extrovert for sure.
Okay. Well, you're doing a good job of it. Keep it up. You're faking it beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah, the NDEs. Yeah, those were. They made me who I am. A large part of who I am today. About 7 years ago, I got the news that nobody ever wants to get. Mr. Dama, you have cancer. And I went, oh, okay. For some reason, that didn't hit me as hard as I thought it would. What are we going to do about it? And I had prostate cancer. And so they said, well, there are several options. But he goes, my recommendation for the stage that you're at is surgery. I said, do it. Let's get it up. Tear it. Fine. I can live without a prostate. Let's do it. So we went in, and this particular gentleman, the urologist, used a robot, the maker of which I won't name, and the intent was to just several minor incisions along the abdominal wall, and the arms of the robot were inserted. And there was one particular arm whose total function was to drag and place a drain tube in the main working area where the prostate had been removed. Unbeknownst to the surgeon, who I prefer to call the chainsaw urologist, he compromised 2 major blood vessels and didn't realize it. There was no camera on that arm. And just, again, just happenstance, the way the drain line was positioned and the way they had me positioned on the table and then later in recovery was putting pressure on, enough pressure so I wasn't just bleeding out like from an open hydrant. But so then they came in to get me to stand up. They said, well, Mr. Dhamma, we need you to stand up and take a couple of steps. And once I stood up, then everything just drained out and I bled to death in just very quick order. Coded, and luckily there happened to be a trauma nurse in the room at the time. She didn't work in that department. She came to coordinate a meeting with another one of the nurses and just happened to be there when I coded. She took charge and they revived me and then whisked me back off into surgery. So he opened me up, went in and found one of the bleeders, but not the other, and said, oh, my work here is done. Closed me up. And so about 10 hours later, I bled out again and coded. So then the chief of trauma surgery said, you're fired, I'm taking over. And so he basically gutted me like a trout, from the pubic bone up to my sternum. And when they opened me up, they kept pumping fluids into me as fast as the bags would drain, just so my heart would have something to pump. So I just, incredibly distended by this time. So when they opened me up, everything came out and coated again on the table. And that was when I had my first very profound near-death experience. And we can go back to that. So then a few years later, I needed to get my hip replaced, my left hip. And so I really researched this guy. This guy was, I mean, he was the Cadillac of hip replacement dudes. So that went beautifully. In fact, he came in after the surgery, after my two of my NDEs, and nobody can figure out what happened. I just stopped. My heart stopped breathing. I stopped beating. I stopped breathing. I totally coded. Woke up both times. First time with a little tiny doctor on top of my chest, because she was such a small thing. She's on, and I'm waking up. She goes, "Can you hear me?" Well, of course I can hear you. What's going on? And she goes, "We thought we lost you." And my wife is sitting in the bed, or not the bed, but sitting next to the bed, and she's, melting down. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've been here before. I don't like this." And so then I had another one, and then we went further on. So the original scar that the trauma surgeon gave me was so large, and it was just so hurriedly done that it herniated. It came open, and some of my intestines, some of the insides were coming out. So they had to go in and fix that. And while they were doing that, so we went in and found that he had to remove 2 pounds of scar tissue from the interior of the incision, and that had already started to adhere to some of the organs and my frame.
Yeah.
So he said, "Well, we need to wait 24 hours, let you stop bleeding, and then go back in." So when they went back in the next time, they found that I had a perforated bowel, which they never would have found, which was just hours away from turning gangrenous. So again, it was one of those, it was just a series of just bizarre coincidences, which I don't believe in coincidence at all, by the way.
Yeah.
But best explanation was a series of bizarre coincidences that saved my life on several occasions. And yes, I coded during that one also.
What was the experience after that? I mean, you're still here.
Yes.
And there are no coincidences.
The first time, and there were some minor, the major NDE that I really carry with me was the third one, although I do remember incidents from the first two. But on the third one, I remember being someplace where there were 3 beings of light. It was just the only way I can describe it. And one of them said, "We've called you back. This is the 3rd time we've called you. You just refuse to go. It is against our recommendation, but I have been instructed to give you the opportunity to return." I'm like, "Sign me up." Okay. He goes, "No, not so fast. You have to agree to do this." And this for years escaped me. And I said, "Okay, yeah, put me in, coach. I'm in. I need to go back." And that's when I woke up and everybody's going, "We got him." And I distinctly remember going into that surgery where the anesthesiologist going, "How's this guy still alive? Why isn't he dead yet?" The anesthesiologist goes, "I don't know if I can if he's going to make it off the table." And the surgeon went nuts. He said, "This guy is not the dying kind. Nobody's going to die today if everybody does their job." And so evidently I did. So when they came back around, they're all like, "Oh yeah, okay, good. This guy's not the dying kind." But they said, you can go back, but you have to agree to do this. The reason you were there in the first place is over. You've done that. That's been accomplished. Now your reason for being is no longer. You can go back, but this is the new mission that you're taking on. And so the subsequent NDEs were refining that. And the last one was, before I even went into it, I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know how and I didn't know why, but I knew it was going to happen because I have felt a communication, a presence that wasn't there before the first set of NDEs, and is still with me. But that presence let me know, and again, not in words, it's just, you just know, it's just there. But that it was going to be a very difficult ordeal, and I had the option at any time to refuse to go forward, accepting the consequences of that decision, but also had to accept the consequences of being determined to continue on in this particular body. So, and so I'm much more clear in why I'm here and what the purpose is and what my purpose is. And I've been devoting myself to doing that ever since.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. Me too. And so are my creditors and the government.
What's next for you? Presentations, trainings, or you talked about you're writing some books.
Right. I finished a book called Becoming Rational, Taking Control of Your Thoughts and Your Life. It is a introduction to the cognitive behavioral program that we use with the juveniles in my juvenile center. And I've adapted this for adults and wrote a book. It's a short book. It's about 26,000 words. And so shopped that around, got a lot of interest, but I also got feedback that, this is a little bit rough here and there. And it was my first book. So I'm in the process of rewriting that. And I'm working on my second one, which is my treatise on cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy. And so I've written several chapters in that, but really working on the outline, the framework for that. And right now it's trending. It looks like it's going to be about 90,000 words.
So your hobbies, scuba diving, hiking, and writing, and
Yes.
Zen.
Scuba diving, not so much anymore. When I was in the military, we just seemed to be always near the ocean, an ocean somewhere. And so that was fun. And when I also learned to dive as part of my military career. I was learned how to scuba dive when I was 16 with one of my friends. So, I was a civilian diver and then a military diver. And but now I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and there's just not a lot of opportunity to dive around here. So we haven't been doing that for a few years. And especially now with my fake hip and all that, I'm just not really willing to schlep equipment down, rocky beaches and cliffs. That's a young man's game. Hiking, I try to get out and walk the dog as much as I can. We have many. The one nice thing they have around here are lots of hiking trails and nature trails. So try to get out at least a couple of times a week, for a couple hours at a time. Just get some fresh air and exercise, and just get back into nature, and just let what is soak in.
Nice. What's on your bucket list?
Oh, I want to see the Taj Mahal and a full moon. That is definitely on my bucket list.
Nice.
And over the last few months, I found or a friend found me a health worker in Nepal, and so we've been writing back and forth, communicating back and forth, looking into the possibility of organizing a foundation to fund a clinic in his region, which is pretty close to Tibet. It's about 170 kilometers north of Kathmandu. So that's a distinct possibility. But I think when I retire from my directorship in probably about 3 years, then I want to do more traveling, more presentations. I want to get back into training other hypnotists, I want to train other therapists to become clinical hypnotherapists. That is really my passion, and I think that's one of the reasons I'm here now, is to advance the science of hypnotherapy within the science of mental health.
Well, thank you for doing that work. That is something that, as a hypnotist, we're always looking for the evidence-based, research that supports it. So thank you for that.
I tell people, I am not a hypnotist. I'm a therapist. I don't wear we don't wear turbans. We don't use crystal balls. We're scientists. And even the people who don't understand the science behind it, there's science behind it. It's a proven scientific fact. This is a state of mind that can be quantified, qualified, and manipulated.
How do our listeners get a hold of you?
I am available at Richard Dhamma, and that's Richard D-A, M as in Mike, .com. That's my website. I'm available on Facebook at Richard Dhamma LPC, Counseling and Clinical Hypnotherapy. Just write Richard Dhamma LPC, it'll come up. And I'm also available at richard.dhamma@yahoo.com. That's my personal email address, and I will be happy to answer anybody.
Thank you again for serving our country, and thank you for your offer to the veterans with PTSD. Hopefully some will take you up on that.
But I sincerely hope so. Those are my people. When I started practice, I inherited a practice in Detroit, which is like a 2-hour drive from where I am. So I was, going back and forth for a couple of years doing that. But also doing outreach at that area, outreach therapy for veterans, because so many people were still hiding in the closet and living under the shame of just something that's totally beyond their control, and it's just so treatable. So, yeah, no, I have never taken a penny for working with a veteran, and I never will.
Well, thanks again for being here today, Richard. Really appreciate all that you do, and come back sometime.
I would be delighted. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today with Awaken the Mind, hosted by David Juhasz.
Awaken the mind, you need to understand. If you can't, you must, and if you must, you can. Now that I got you, let me put you in a trance. Got you feeling hypnotic, your mind, let me massage it. Your thoughts are getting quiet, your stress subsiding. You starting to see images, but it ain't no mirages. Think it's time to calibrate. Take a breath and concentrate. Get into your subconscious. Time to feel the energy, the brain waves. Let's go deep into your memory. Beware of self, let the worries melt. All you see is you and you don't see no one else. Auditory digital, talking to yourself. It might seem bizarre, a feeling you never felt. This is your time to shine. Awaken the mind, the NLP and hypnosis guide. Yeah.